You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
And I'm Wilhelm Weber.
Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Joining us today, the Reverend Dr. Wilhelm Weber. He is Managing Director of the International Lutheran Society of Wittenberg. Dr. Weber, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You can see I can't wait to get onto the program.
We are just so delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you and to hear what's going on with the Old Latin School in Wittenberg. What is the Old Latin School?
You know, it was built as a boys' gymnasium, a high school for boys after Luther had died already, 1564. That's a long time ago, but it means it's got a long history. It went through the Napoleonic Wars. It was a garrison at that time. The roof was taken off to put on cannons and stuff like that. So quite a moving history. Later on, that, of course, had some detrimental effects because the water got into the beams, the wooden beams. And so when they renovated it now in 2015, they really had to debone the whole structure practically and refill it with concrete and steel to keep the whole structure up. And the architect says that he had many sleepless nights, just because the whole thing was nearly falling down already. That would have been a big fall, but they managed to put it up nicely, and now it's really a beautiful place, really in the middle of Wittenberg, in the center, right next to Luther's church where he did all the preaching regularly, often daily, and here in this town center between his home in the Black Cloister and then in the castle church where he was working at the university. So we are pretty central. It's pretty nice. It's been in operation now for 5 years. And we really are well equipped to welcome visitors, if there were some,
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like such a great place, and the pictures from the renovation and all of the things that have been happening are just wonderful to look through. What has actually remained the same in Wittenberg since the time of the Reformation?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. There's the water system, for instance. The water system, they brought water in wooden pipes. This is not just, they took big logs and they bore holes through from one end to the lengthwise, not through the sideways, but through the whole length, having big trees as pipes. They've still got, you can see those bores still in the museum here. Those things, Melanchthon got free water supply. Luther did not have the advantage of that, but there are wells like that all over town. And after they had closed the systems down so that nobody could see the water, now the water is freely visible. You can see it, and you can even drink it, because otherwise people still have the sign there, this is no drinking water, but the tour guides make it a habit that they sort of take a glass along and then take a swig of the water to just show this is really very good water from the northern parts between Wittenberg and Berlin. The water is taken here through those wooden pipes which still function today. But there are other things like the church. The church is very active. Population-wise, percentage-wise, it's a small fraction, 10% people go to church, but the Christians are very active in many aspects of life. You have got the university going, although it's no longer it's called the Wittenberg University, but it's part of Halle now. And of course the schools. the school which started off in the old Latin school now still functions as a big gymnasium, of course now for boys and girls. And there are plenty schools around Wittenberg, not only the gymnasium, but others as well. And that is really a big part of the city income still today, education. But the other big part of work in Wittenberg is the chemical industry, which of course is a new business. You could say that at that time Kranach was the chemist, and his so you did have something in the line of chemistry. But now there's a big industrial plant from a guy from Czechia who's supplying a billionaire who's pumping in lots of money into this town, which really helps a lot. It's 1/3 of the people, of the 50,000 people living here, practically find work in that industrial complex to the west of Wittenberg, all along there. Education is important, I said that already. And then the last part is tourism, which these two branches, education and industry, are going on even now. But in the tourism part has really fallen flat in Corona times.
So tell us what we might learn or see in a visit to the Old Latin School today.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I just got new posters today from the desk there in the old Rathaus, the old civic center, practically just next to the Old Latin School. They are renovating, and so a lady who works there, she brought me the posters, and I can just go through the pictures. They have got the highlights of Wittenberg. If you come to the Old Latin School, though, you come into my office, there's a bookshop. I'm sitting in the bookshop right now, and you see a statue of Luther and a lot of CPH books. You have also a number of German books from a variety of publishers, just because many people here don't read English. German is a bit of if we could have Russian, because that's what most of them have as second language. But young children don't come into the bookshop so often. So you have the bookshop, then you have our chapel, which is of course the gem of the house, which also has divine services every Sunday. We have weekday services as well, alternating, not really on a regular basis, but depending on who's coming in as a visitor. Our constant people here, which is a handful of people, my family, and some people who have moved here. We've got a lady who studied in America and did a master's there, and she came here. She's offering language courses. She's a member of our congregation too, and that is part of our congregation, and then they are all fit in English and in German. So it depends always whether we have visitors. This Sunday we expect people from Dresden, and so it'll be German. But if other people come who only know English, well, we might be switching to English because those Dresden visitors are also fit in English. And then, of course, upstairs we have our hospitality service, where you have got nice rooms to stay, single bedrooms, double bedrooms, also an apartment where guests can stay overnight, a common room, a library, things like that, which is a very nice view over the St. Mary's City Church. So you have got nice accommodations and very comfortable rooms to stay over. And it's a combination of old and new. Of course, because it's a monument practically, old stones, old doors and old frames have been preserved, old pillars, but it's all very functional as well. We've got a elevator for people who can't take the steps, and so there's quite it's an efficient kitchen too, which everybody can use, etc., etc.
Has anything changed, or what has changed since the grand celebration of the 500th anniversary of the Reformation?
I think one of the big changes is that I moved down from the top floor where the offices were of the managing director down into the bookshop, and we try to keep the door open here. The door stays open most of the time. Now the weather is quite gloomy and rainy, etc., and pretty cold. It's getting down to freezing in the evenings already. So the door is closed due to the weather. But otherwise, people can just walk in and take a look and see, and I can see who's going past as well.
How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted your work and the Old Latin School and just the community of Wittenberg at large too?
It's practically closed down the whole business. Really, there's no visitors to talk about. Really, no. If a lady from Holy Cross in Collinsville, just across the river from you guys in St. Louis, they asked for a little video, and I took some pictures outside, and it's just empty. We have got visitors coming in from Berlin because they can't travel far, so they do day trips here. But that is really just sporadic and very few in numbers as well. But this is not only for us, this is the whole town. There is no transport on the river anymore. There are no buses coming through, so no overnight visitors. And the hospitality service, the hotels practically have shut down for tourists. There are still people who continue with work. The postman comes here every day. He's one of the few people I see regularly. Today the locksmith came and fixed the door handle. Somebody had ripped the door handle off, etc. And so those things sort of continue, but the tourism business really has fallen flat. My wife is a teacher at the school, and she continues teaching. The school is up and running. They do that. They've got holidays next week. And so we are in a state where Corona has not affected the local population very badly. We are one of the most fortunate places in Germany. And but the business is just so low that people really are struggling to make ends meet. The government is helping quite substantially, but of course that is only a temporary help, and it does not really help a business if the people just don't come in anymore. For our bookshop, it is okay. People still can order books. That is what happens. But even the big school programs which we had envisaged, student exchange with the Concordia universities, that has, of course, just fallen by the wayside. Another program which is planned by World Missions from Missouri is the European branch of having a bachelor in theology with Charles Courtright, Dr. Charles Courtright from Korea. These things are also just on the back burner now because of the situation, because nobody can just stay here. But those are things which we were very eager to implement, but they have just said, well, hold on, we wait till something happens. So there's no overnight guests. There are no. We continue with the church services. Because of our small numbers, we are able to conduct the services as before. And even the language program goes on, but that is with locals. The tourist business has just fallen flat.
Well, I'm sorry to hear how much this has impacted the tourism and so many visitors from beyond just your local community. But thanks be to God, you can continue the the ministry of the word there, and with the Sunday services and proclaiming Christ in those services. We have more to talk about with Dr. Weber here on the Coffee Hour. We need to take just a short break. We'll be right back. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? A living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
We're talking with the Reverend Dr. Wilhelm Weber. He's managing director of the International Lutheran Society of Wittenberg. We're talking about the Old Latin School in Wittenberg, where he serves. And so much has been impacted. So much of the visitors, the tourism in Wittenberg has been impacted, but certainly the word still continues as the focus of the Old Latin School. Speaking of that, this is October, and looking forward to remembering the Reformation at the end of this month. Why is learning the history of the Lutheran Reformation so important? Is it important? Is it helpful to the work that we're given today, Pastor?
Yes, and it's of course a suggestive question which you have asked me, but I think it is one of the vital things that Missouri has come in, and also the Zerg, into Wittenberg, because I think we have got so much more than just the buildings and the monuments and the old libraries. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a fan of the old music, and I'm a fan of the old buildings and all these things, but I think a lot of people here in East Germany, in the previous eastern parts, are thinking that Luther is just a thing of the past. And I think they really need to see living Lutheran communities like you have in Missouri congregations, like you have in active Zell congregations as well. I've noticed that many people think Christianity is just dead here, but that's often because they don't visit the Zell congregations. And also in America, I'm sure you can, if you don't find a Missouri synod, you might also land up in the wrong place. And that is often the case here in East Germany, that the people just don't know a confessional alternative. A lot of churches, and this is not just my idea, the minister of our state, Hasselhoff, just wrote that if Luther would come back again in these times, he would not join the state church because it is just such a politicized, ideological setup. He would probably go to the Catholic Church. Well, I beg to differ. I'm sure he would be glad to see that there's a confessional Lutheran alternative. And that's what really it is about, is that we show that Lutheranism is not just about old statues and old buildings, but really is about living the faith which came back to light in the Reformation time. Luther was really most interested in getting the word out to the people. And if I say word, I mean God's word in gospel, law and gospel, and that these clear mission tools were back again amongst the people of that time. And that has not changed at all. People here need it very much. You know, I'm a hunter, and that's a way how I also meet common folk here, people who have not gone to church for the last 50 years, and they are 70 now. My friend with whom I do that, and he is it is one of those things which, if they tell me about their general life, I just know one of the things which they really need mostly is the church. Church which would address those things which we know to have forgiveness of sins, life and salvation. Those things is just unheard of, and that is they've got a lot of wealth, they are socially covered, etc., etc. They've got education, they've got culture, they've got all those things, but real faith in the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, that is just sorely missing. And there it is also, of course, quite a challenge to get that out. And that's why I think what one would need is really a living congregation with members who, say now, a class full of students, 25 students or so, who live out the Christian faith here in the city would be a wonderful witness. And that is something which the house is, of course, a wonderful standing point. We can open the doors, we can sing aloud, the organ can play, and the brass band from our neighboring congregations, when they come visit, is there. But we need this kind of witness which is there for people to see that the church, the Reformation is not dead 500 years ago, but is still alive and living. If in the United States, in Africa, in Asia, Australia, etc., etc. And thanks to the old Latin school, it's also even visible to a small extent right over here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And along those lines, how does the Latin school reach out into the community? What kinds of things, I know COVID has changed so much, what kinds of things are you looking to be able to do to keep reaching out into these communities and to bring people in and tell them about the gospel of Christ?
You know, Sarah, it is a lot about getting connected with the people. So I try to move out and see where can one meet the people. My predecessors here in the old Latin school, like Christian Lang or David Marsman or also William Torgerson, they all tried to connect to the English people mostly. Well, it was mainly an English ministry. That was because of their background. I tried to do that also with the Germans, try to reach out to the schools. I told you my wife is a teacher at a Christian private school. That is and then they are sort of where the people are in their daily lives. That means at the hospital, or in the hunting club, or in the when they gather in the evenings in the various localities, etc. That one just meets up with the societies, and there where the people meet socially. That one shows one's face regularly and tries to build up contacts in that way, because the people don't come to the church services which we advertise. There is also quite a wide range of church services on offer. And so one has to sort of build up the personal contact with people. And that, of course, takes time. I'm here for 3 years now, and we've got some good friends, especially with those people who are already members also of the congregation, reaching out to their families, etc., etc. So it's sort of like the concentric circles, reaching out more and more.
Any plans for the year ahead? What should we be watching for from the old Latin school in the year ahead?
Yeah, I hope that the bachelor's course with Chuck Courtright will actually get off the ground, and that will get going. That they will have a contingent of their people, 15 to 20 students staying over here for a length of time, so that the rooms are practically utilized, and the library and the common room and the study rooms, etc., are used, on a regular basis and don't just stand empty and waiting. That also is, of course, if that happens, that is why we don't do the so aggressively the Airbnb program or other modes of advertising, because if we want to have that kind of program, we can't have the other one. You can't. We must see what is more important, and we think this kind of education program is absolutely top of our list. I think that is something which we also should pray for and say that God opens the doors so that this program can actually work out. But on the other hand, we also need space for visitors to say, this is our place where we can come again and again. I think a good thing is also if we would have sufficient numbers that one does not either German or English, but rather both. Because we already have some people who say, well, if it's English, then I can come. If it is German, I can't understand. And others who say, well, if it is English, I can't understand it either. So if we would have sufficient numbers to do the church services in both languages on a continual and regular basis, I think would be a good thing too. And then with the bookshop, I think that is just to make it more and more visible. I don't think that we need much more, because people, we have a niche market for confessional Lutheran theology, and I think that is pretty well covered with this stuff from CPH.
Our guest today, the Reverend Dr. Wilhelm Weber, Managing Director for the International Lutheran Society of Wittenberg. You can find out more at oldlatinschool.org. Dr. Weber, thank you so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour today.
Oh, Andy, it was my pleasure. Sarah, nice to talk to you again.
You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.